Wonderful. So, welcome everybody to ht+a's webinar for this month. And our topic today is around process ownership. So before I get into it much further, obviously, to introduce myself to those of you who don't know me, I'm Taryn. I've been with the company for a few years now, very much in the marketing and technology front, and recently taken on responsibilities in the operational side. I work very closely with our founder, Mr. Hans Trunkenpols himself, and I'm pleased to say today, in case you didn't realize, boss, is the 11th time you have the pleasure of doing a webinar with me in the years.
Wow. Well, hello, Taryn, and hello, everybody out there. Thanks for having me today, Taryn.
The thing is, after 11 already, you're always cool as a cucumber. I'll always be nervous on the day. That's what comes from a lifetime of training and everything, I reckon.
I suppose, yeah.
So I think Hans doesn't need a lot of introduction to most of you. He is a certified IATF auditor, thousands of days of audits under his belt, as well as other standards such as VDA 6.3 process auditing. He is the man to ask about auditing. Not only auditing, but he's super passionate about some topics that come out of the management standards that we at ht+a specialize in, and one of them being process ownership. So we usually come up with these topics out of FAQs, what gets asked by clients. Not only do clients mention process ownership a lot over time, it's the third time we're hosting a webinar about this topic, actually, Hans, not only the second. So what occurs to me is, this topic again, why is it so key? What's always stood out to me is it's about culture and especially top management. Implementing that culture and cultural change. But for you, why are companies still struggling with implementing a process ownership culture when it comes to process management?
Well, Taryn, exactly for those reasons that you just brought forward. I think the first thing we need to understand is that processes have been now identified in the organizations and they have been put in place. We need to understand there are two main frameworks in which we operate such processes. There is, on the one side, the internal framework. This is where the organizations basically implement a business operating system. It's better known today on the quality management system, but I like to stay away from this wording because it's still to this day very misleading, where top management says, well, it's a quality management system and there we have a quality department for, so let's delegate the whole burden of this management standard into the quality department. And now it is the quality people that are still running with this obligation, unfortunately, to this day. But if you have a closer look, that so-called quality management system is actually the framework of a business operating system because it involves each and every department on all functions and levels. And in this internal framework, that is stipulated, that is documented, in certain procedures, in manuals, in policies. The organizational structures are in place. The processes, as I said before, are identified correctly or incorrectly. I don't want to elaborate on that too much. The roles and responsibilities have been assigned, and for the processes, also certain control mechanisms have been put in place in order to get an understanding if my process delivers what we desire. So this internal business operating system is now applied, but then over and above, we have also another framework, which is the outer world. We like to call it the external factors that affect an organization. And just to bring forward a couple of examples, the global economy is currently giving us all headache. I would like to believe inflation rates go up, political crisis and wars don't help. There is just a variety, and I could go on. Emerging markets are not developing as they should be. So there's a lot of turbulence in the outer field. And this is what we need to understand when we have a very static internal framework in our business operating system that may not be too static because it actually has to permanently adapt to the ever-changing outside factors that the world brings in there. And an effective process management does not only cater the internal processes, but it also goes into the interface where it reacts to the changing factors in the external. So this is a very important to understand. And from that perspective, yeah, as you asked, you have the processes identified, but who is managing them? Just think about the standards basically ask now and call for so-called process owners. The way we assign to this day process owners is, hey, we have already department leaders, so the department leader becomes now also a process owner. And I think we elaborated that in our last or one of our last webinars. So, but who is effectively managing that? And this is definitely where the problem comes in, and that's why I'm not surprised that the changing the culture of that is one of the key words that we need to tackle, I think, in this hour to come.
Yeah. No, it absolutely makes sense to me that that's those internal processes and factors need to be flexible to account for the external. To be honest, I can think of that into pretty much any topic in the workplace. It doesn't even go around management systems or today's topic. So about the processes though, and departments, processes do include and affect departmental tasks. So
yes,
how does this equate to you?
Yeah, they certainly do, but not in a silo concept as we have it right now, but in a flow. A process must flow, and a process must flow into each and every function and level. If you just think about a new product implementation, and who is ever involved in launching a new product, that easily and quickly understands that nearly every faculty and function of the organization is playing a role in that. But the problem we are sitting here, these are the main drivers, I would say. We're still stuck in old structures of organizing businesses first, and we're also still stuck in old behavioral structures of human behavior. And this is a critical factor as we look at it right now. But I want to illustrate that maybe starting with this departmental thinking versus a process environment. I think that's very critical because before this is not really solved, there is very little to no chance to get into an effective process management, because it hinders also the culture that comes with. I'm just going to quickly share.
Yeah, it is a tough one to wrap your mind around what it realistically brings.
Yeah, absolutely. But if you look into a standard structure of an organization in this day and age, you will find this these departmental approaches. And if you look at a normal organization chart, you have on top the general, and then you have in the first line your platoon leaders, and then you have your soldiers. That's how you structure an army, literally, and that is often how we also run the organization. But I don't know if our listeners have ever made some time to think about what is actually the definition of a department. But whether you have or not, I've done this for you, and you will find that the definition is a major territorial administrative subdivision. So, what does that mean for our business? Running these departments, not only that we run our departments like a territory, we also subdivide us from the whole context of the business flow, of the process flow. And here comes the trouble, because now we act like lions, as you can see in this illustration here. And if you want to take this further, and if you want to look at what is actually the definition of a territory, and that territory is a definition that comes from the animal world, and that says that this is an area that an animal defends against intruders, especially of the same species. So if you want to do yourself a favor, Taryn, and people out there, if you replace that word animal by human being or management, then you see exactly where we stand to this day.
I
And
think
that
we
is
all fall prey to that sometimes.
and that is and that is obviously a definition that firstly explains the problem we have when I said earlier we haven't given up on structures of human behaviors, because these organizational structures as we have it today, it supports and promotes the development of kingdoms and queendoms.
Mm-hmm.
And these silos, as we call them, they get now protected against intruders. And you hear this often out there when a production manager says, well, my KPIs would be all green and my dashboard would be all looking super, but HR, they are not bringing me those 15 direct workers that I ordered. So if they would do the job, my dashboard would be green. And by the way, maintenance, if they would do a better job and my machines would run all the time. So if they do a better job, my dashboard is green. And this is unfortunately what the situation is in too many of the cases today. So people in these kingdoms and queendoms are starting to play ping pong and finger point and said, whose fault is it? Because it cannot be my fault, because my sheet is clean. So once we understand that, now we can link this to what I said earlier. It requires a certain human behavior to allow a process to flow through all these territories. Because if they are protected and defended, you consequently have your risk assessment on the process interfaces, because they are, needless to mention, interconnected to one another. So if these boundaries are protected and it's not my fault, but it is yours, then you can imagine how much loss you have and how much risk occurs in those process interfaces by not making decisions, by not providing information in time, and the likes of. But at the end of the day, there's a customer waiting at the end of the process that doesn't have any time for a company's cats and dog fights and protections and whatnot and territory and the likes of. And now that we talk about effective process management and the culture thereof, you can understand that this current setup of management, which will significantly change in the near future already. I can tell you that already. And it's also explainable. I will elaborate a little bit on that later. Is not really favoring a smooth process flow through the organization. So the question that we have today is, are we running this hierarchy of an army like lions? Or are we running it as adults, that have open doors for communication and for other silos and for your problems and the likes of? So this is currently, unfortunately, not in favor of a smooth flow, because a process, and I just illustrated that here as silos, and you find all these different departments, these silos, and 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 this is actually how a process flows. The process is only then smooth, effective, and efficient when, yes, and multiple times, again and again and again. If you and I like to refer this new product implementation, right? There is hardly any faculty or function in the organization that is not coming to the party to have a smooth sailing and bring a project nicely over the finish line. And consequently, we often have delays in the launches and have too many iteration loops because it wasn't fitting in quality or in time. And now when you have that situation that all these silos are protected to certain extent, sometimes more, sometimes less, but in general, and I've seen this in nearly 50 countries where I applied services. It's a phenomenon that is just still to this day very, very present. There's many good managers, many good leaders out there, but in general, I must say, this is the current state of working in too many of the cases, and consequently, the project management cannot be effective such as, and therefore it needs a huge cultural change in which we will be supported very soon, but I also will elaborate on that a little bit later. So that is number one of the reasons that I would like to bring forward as to why it needs that cultural change and why the processes are not flowing smoothly.
It's like a piece of modern art there in front of us all. Maybe a few.
Yeah, it's a complex. It's a complex. Yeah, it's the grade of complex is of process management is definitely present. Yeah.
So, based on what you're saying to me, it sounds like you might identify, map, and define and implement your processes as beautifully as you want. But the siloed protection of territories, being lions, is the problem to them running smoothly. I think that was the key you said earlier for the flow of the processes.
Exactly, because of the interface management. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
So to you though, what is hindering that? What is preventing that? Top reason.
That would be a word with 3 letters. It's called ego. It's just as simple as that. It's the ego. We are driving around, and you will see that all this will come to a change, whether we like it or not. But at this current state, and again, and that's why I'm repeating, I'm not surprised that this topic made it into your top 5 list. It's just the ego. We're a bunch of egos, right? And I'm not necessarily talking about ego because every human being has an ego. I'm talking about negative ego. I mean, ego in itself is a spectrum. It's neither positive or negative, but I'm talking about negative ego of being grumpy, being too demanding, just telling you what you have to do, and the likes of. So everything that humans don't like to be told all the time, and that is the second big block of hindering the processes to flow.
Okay, yeah, and I was just going to say, we all have egos, whether we want to admit it or not. Part of human
Yeah, but again,
nature.
it's a spectrum. It's ego per se is not negative or positive. Everybody
Yeah,
has it's built into the human structure. So, but it can be positive and it can be negative. So apparently, I'm talking about the negative side of the ego that comes into play, and that many people in the factories out there are suffering from.
but
So the negative ego, yeah.
yeah, I got you. I mean, it's around everywhere. It's not only a professional thing, it's
Yeah.
personal lives and everything as well. Um, how do you tackle ego though? That's a big topic and a difficult thing to change.
I mean, Einstein already said it. And there's this famous quote of Einstein where he says, the biggest kind of madness is to change nothing but expecting things to become better or
Mm-hmm.
different. So, beautiful quote. So, how are you going to change that? I can tell you, I mean, this is individually, but I can tell you what the mainstream is. And I spent a lot of time in studying the new gigatrends and megatrends of the future, especially in these areas of human resource and human behavior, because that is always the missing link. You can always be good in products and process, but how do we take care of the people? And how do we treat one another in an organization? That's apparently what is missing. But how are you going to do it? I can tell you in the future what is foreseen. I mean, in the area of HR, the whole onboarding process will entirely change. So the human behavior structures will be a lot more coming into focus. We are still too much onboarding based on skills, knowledge, and experiences to a certain field where I need capacity,
On the
and
hard
not so
skill.
and not so much about the ego side of it. What's the
Mm.
personality setup and the likes of so that will be reinforced. That must be reinforced in any case to understand more about the human behavior structure. During onboards, there will be new technologies coming into the onboarding processes where we understand more. We need to upskill also HR departments in neuroscience, in even energy work, even with quantum physics and quantum mechanics to understand how the energy flows not only from a process paper to a process paper, but how does energy flow from humans to humans. So that's going to come massively forward to support that cultural change process, because it is, as Einstein said, we can impossibly believe that something's changed if we don't change ourselves first. That would be a nonsense. All right. And it will be supported by actually reinforcing and bringing more in. And every studies that we went through says that, and rightfully so, is these areas in onboarding, in neuroscience, in psychology, and industrial psychology aspects will be reinforced, because it's just too time consuming, too difficult to change over. So we need to already address that in the onboarding processes and the likes of. But it is what it is, and in that structure that we have today, it is more than needed. It's more than needed.
Absolutely. Hans, I must say it's interesting to listen to, and I'm sure a lot of people, especially if they haven't met you, here's the auditor, mechanical engineer, all these factors. And then it's interesting to always listen to you talk about the human side and these passions you have for people. It's always just an interesting juxtaposition to me after even a few years of working with you. I get what you're saying. You've mentioned all these challenges that need attention, but what do we do about it? And it's a largely negative ego traits that drive our world. Unfortunately, negativity can be more powerful than positivity at times. So how do we change that in the organizational setting?
Well, first of all, the mainstream will be the organizational structures will look different in the near future in any case. So as we said, we cannot continue the same way of doing, expecting things to come better. So the organizational structure will support this. They will become a lot more tight, lean, if you want to call it that. They will have a flattened pyramid in their organizations. There will be a lot of operators on the lower levels will no longer accept to be just operational enforcers.
Yeah.
You need to understand the situation is there is so much fear energy in the organizations for losing jobs and the likes of. So people in our organizations and factories have lost their voice. They're not pushing back, accepting too much. And that feeds, of course, also the ego on the other side, because there's no pushback coming. It's an easy prey. But in the future, and I can also explain you why, people don't want to be any much longer these operational enforcers. They will push back, and they will find their voice. And when I say push back, I don't mean to be disrespectful or rude. No, but with facts and data. Right? Not accepting because you're the manager, I have to do it. That will come to a standstill, and it will come to a standstill very soon. I think we will speak about this a little bit later, and that is just the new generations that are coming into to the labor market. But the organizational structure of the future. I don't know if I have the slide here. This is the current management setup that we have. All right. So there is somewhere in the top managed, depending on what size you are. If you come from the corporate world and from those large giga companies, all the way down to small and medium enterprise companies. But top management, responsible for the corporate strategy. Let's put it that way. And then you have this very dangerous middle class management, I must say, because they are currently at this point in time just administrative controllers. Yeah. Mm-hmm. They just control the workforce. And then you have the line management. They are exactly these operational enforcers. They get told they have to report back to the middle management. But if we report problems up there, no, you just have to do it. It is unfortunately how it is. So from an administrative controller down to the operational enforcer, and that as a current management setup will change. And I also can tell you why. I can also tell you how it will look like. All right, and then let's take the bottom up. The line manager will become and will convert to become real entrepreneurs. An entrepreneur is that thinks and acts as it's more an entrepreneur in the organization and manage with decision power, with authorities and the likes of. Authorities are not really given. What's interesting in the middle class, in the middle management, they will have to become and will become internal development workers. This will be now the managers that understand that they will be a service provider to the line management. So their job is to get all obstacles out of the way so that the line management can act as an entrepreneur, if that makes sense.
Yeah. Okay. Yes.
All right. And from that perspective, and the top management will apply that leadership, but leadership in the true sense of the word leadership, and lay out the values. But now they will have in the middle management a strong workers, not managers and VPs and all the likes of workers that understand that the operations are putting food on the plate. So they will understand, the middle management will understand that they have to get obstacles out of the way so the operations can do what they do best. And you see this in so many times in the current structure, guys. You can see this powerful operations, they have to report, and often you have remote functions of engineering, of business units, and the likes of on a remote function somewhere in the head office. All right. And all these functions, they need to understand the only reason why they get up in the morning is to get obstacles out of the way so that operations can do what they do best. And that is to put food on the plate. But in true fact, in reality today is the plants, they have to report, you have to do this, you have to do that. And that's carried then further to the top management. There is so much inefficiency. There's so much inefficiency. So the top range management will be workers in the true sense of the word, understanding why is it not working? What does my operation need? What does the line management need to really act as an entrepreneur? That's going to be the future. And why do I say this? And why do I say this with confidence? That is simply because there is a brand new generation coming into the labor markets. And that is Generation Alpha. And Generation Alpha started already in 2010 to this day. So they're now 14, 15 years old, but they will come sooner or later into the labor market. We have the current one in Generation Z, and I can see this already. These guys are now driving this change in any case. It will support the process that is so much needed in order to get to in a respectful environment, and you can still deal with troubles, okay? But holding the finger and pushing up the pressure, pulling up the pressure, and the likes of not going to make the situation better. But what's coming here in Gen Z and with Gen Alpha, guys, let's buckle up. When they run into this labor market, expect nothing less but complete revolution. They will not push back. They will not hold back, sorry. They will push back. They will challenge management like they've never been challenged before. They do not accept nothing what we have today. And that is much needed, and it's a great, great thing that's coming. And I can see it already in the Gen Z. So Generation Z is now entering also leadership positions. And I can see it already. I meet so many of them. I talk to many also on Gen Alpha, and the likes of. It's really freshens up your mind, you know. And that doesn't mean that the surrounding issues don't become later, but it's not going to be dominated by the management and top-down pressure. And there we have the operational enforcers on the bottom, only because we were told so. There will be pressure coming up left, right, and center. They will push back.
It's already been an interesting mix. We've got how many? We've got 3, 4 generations in the workplace now. boomers,
Well,
millennials. Who am I missing?
I'm a baby boomer, huh?
Are you a
I'm just
boomer?
probably one of the oldest here in this whole forum here.
You can figure away
And
that.
but I can tell you, I always love to work with people, and I always behind the curtains, and also always try to understand different standpoints of view and the likes of. So I meet a lot of young people, young engineers in Generation Z. There is really something coming forward that will support this change in a strong way. So please, we do not expect anything less than revolution, but in a positive way, And so I can't wait. I might see them still in action, but it's definitely a good thing to come here. But that doesn't really help the current situation as of yet for this cultural change. Technically
No.
speaking, technically speaking, and it's really as simple as that. If we suck up our egos a little bit better, and that is that every person that is included in operations in an organization can decide every second, every minute, every hour to behave differently. Because if you behave this way or that way is always a choice. And that is a choice that an individual human makes. So if you can decide to be disrespectful, you could also choose to work any other way. There's no top management. There's no management approval needed. There's no CAPEX approval needed. You decide that every second, every minute, every hour. Boom. Just as simple as that. It's a choice. It's a choice you make. But I can tell you something, and this is what I already said earlier. If one understands, and I studied to look into self-study, I must say, in neuroscience and in quantum physics, it is just insane. I mean, we are all energetically connected. One needs to understand that, and you're affected by emotion. But if you wouldn't be energetically connected, why do you create a negative emotion if somebody is disrespectful to you? So there is the connection already. So there's a lot of that coming in the future to drive that cultural change process. In any case, but that's the future. That's the future picture that we have to get prepared for. And the old structures, as I showed it before, yeah, we will put this to bed once and for all. That way of working, and the good will win.
I like this a lot, Hans. I mean, this year we have really tried to embrace process ownership at ht+a, and we're not perfect. I mean, none of us are, and also in terms of humans, some of us have bad reactions at times. We are all human. But I see with your next slide where you had the future management setup, where you've been aiming for us as an organization and what we're trying to do. We may not be getting it perfectly, but I'm pretty proud of ht+a, how we are going about, being process ownership in a small organization, in terms of the core operations. So no, it's interesting for me to see and hear little things piecing together here.
Yeah, but when you refer to that, you also experience that people change their behavior because they chose to.
Yeah, of course.
So, and a day before, they maybe reacted differently. So it's a choice. Yeah. It's a choice that every single human being can make. And from that perspective, it will be supported due to the before said. But you probably asked me now what we're going to do until Generation Alpha and Z is fully on the speed. What we're doing for the people today here.
Well, no, not only us, everybody.
Yeah.
How can current culture be changed?
The current culture be changed. Yeah, that's
Yeah.
usually, especially the cultural changes. It is, as you said, a change process. Yeah, it's a change process. In this particular case, culture change processes are typically driven top down.
Mm-hmm.
So coming back to Einstein, if we keep on doing it the same way, we cannot expect that things change. All right, and there is a nice and in most of the change projects that I'm involved myself, also covering cultural aspects of it, we prefer what we call the cross-current approach. And the cross-current approach is basically an approach where it's not delegated and dictated from top down, because then you have these operational enforcers again. They have to
Yeah.
do because it was said and stipulated in the procedure, in a new guideline, and our new values, and we have to do it. So, so the quickest and most effective way of is looking into, and this is where I would like to encourage people also to consider that is that counter current principle. And as a
Yeah.
thing, so it starts, of course, with a certain goal definition that comes from management, and there is nothing wrong. But what is different in this approach is that these current goals get into a review where the teams, the employees, are invited to review that and provide their own suggestions before
Mm-hmm.
that is fed back for any further consolidations and resolutions. All right. And once that is made and the resolutions, how you implement that, is also fed back now to the teams, or to the employees, I should say, on a variety of functions and levels, and generate that feedback, because it is the common knowledge these days that wherever you were allowed to actively bring your inputs, you have a quicker buy-in. You just,
Yes,
because
of course.
it's part of yours. You know, if you get dictated, if you say do this because I say so, because I'm the manager, or because who the hell you are, uh, people don't like that, and that should be known now by everybody. So the approach, why this is so important here, is because it integrates it. But remember the practical problems we have. It is not opportune anymore today for managers to ask an operator for help. But why is it that way? Because
Yeah.
I'm the manager? Because I have to be in control? Because I have to know because I'm the manager?
Ego.
It is really, yeah, here comes ego. Yeah, thank you, Terry. It is not opportune to go down there to ask an operator for help, for an opinion, forever. And this has been developed over time. And now we have the situation that managers are just too much disconnected from the people.
Mm.
And if you want to manage people, if you want to change the culture, managing people is managing expectations. People have expectations on different functions and levels. So if that means you need to understand the expectations, but
Yeah.
you only find out these expectations when you engage with people. But here's the problem, Taryn, that the set of expectations for Taryn at the age of 20 is a different set of expectations of Taryn with 40. Expectations change over time. And
Yep.
that means you just don't engage with the people once to find out the expectation. It's a repetitive process. It's an ongoing process. We're too much disconnected. And if one wants to find that out, this is a very practical way, but it requires to suck up egos. I can tell you that much. Whoever is ready and prepared, we've had wonderful, wonderful workshops where people are waking up. It's the people are waking up now anyway. I can see it everywhere. It's just some is finding it still difficult to give up these old structures, as I elaborated earlier. But they will be respectfully pushed by the new generations that are coming in now anyway. So they'll be fine. And the baby boomers like myself are finding themselves on the end of their professional careers anyway. So we make place for what's new to come. But this is definitely a very powerful and effective way in changing cultural aspects of the organization, is just to implement, just to include them in this whole process, not make it a program that's again ordered from top down, because that's why we have the current structures that we have. So that would be my 2 cents for that.
I must say, actually, just as I'm thinking on the fly here, throughout my career, I hadn't been in the manufacturing industry per se. A majority of our clients in the core line manufacturing, and specifically mostly automotive and aerospace. And although it wasn't given a name with the counter-current principle, certainly in previous industries, I found that this happened quite a lot. And the best leaders and my best managers over time were the ones using this method.
Yeah, and you're right. And I don't want to come across here that everything is bad here. I've met so many beautiful people as managers, and I've met also a few great leaders in my professional career.
Yeah, but the reality
But
is,
that's not my statement. That's not my state. Yeah, the statement is where we have the room for improvement, and everybody must self-assess and self-reflect himself to say, am I part of the game, or am I just trying to bring through my personal egos, and that is it's just not necessary, and that the energetic connection is extremely powerful. Huh? It's extremely powerful. So you can do a lot of damage, but you can do also wonder, because the problem doesn't get smaller. But you have a team aside where there is an open door policy. There's no fear levels behind, where you can openly communicate and feedback without having fear that you get punished and the likes of. These guys are the ones that do magic. They do magic. But the key point is, guys, every person can decide for himself any second and minute or hour, because it's a choice to act this way or to act that way. And but to include the teams on all levels, and you can cascade down from level to level as well.
Yeah,
is what we found everywhere where we get called for such projects. The most powerful and the quickest and the most effective way.
Yeah, and like you said, instant buy-in. If you're
instant
included.
buy-in, yeah, because I'm part of the creation. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Thank you, Hans. We actually, that was very interesting to me. I always like this topic with you. And I know I told you stick to 2 main topics, because otherwise this one you could talk about all day. We could sit and chat for hours. But that was very interesting to me, Hans, and I'm sure to everybody on the who's dialed in today. Guys, if anybody has questions, absolutely, we've got a Q&A session available. Please use the chat function or the Q&A function, or raise your hand if you would like to speak and join the call. Before the age-old question pops up as well, absolutely, I will share the recording. I will share the recordings. Probably around Monday morning, I'll email them directly to you, the recordings as well as the slides, and it'll be available on our podcast. Please share far and wide. Hans, was there anything else you wanted to add?
Yeah, if there
There are a few minutes
are,
left of our planned
are
time.
there
Oh,
no
wait.
questions?
No, we got one, Martin. Let's see. What are some of the typical timelines for such a culture change?
3 to 5 years.
Not overnight.
No. Well, depending. Okay, let me rephrase this. Depending on the size of the organization, of course. I would say, yeah, I would say that frame for big companies. If you look into small and medium enterprises, that can go from 1 to 2 years.
Well, still,
The smaller,
not
yeah,
quick.
the lesser people you need to engage, the quicker apparently it goes. But if you look at small and medium enterprises versus corporate world, don't expect anything lesser than that.
Mm-hmm. Makes sense. So we've got quite a few questions coming through here now. Colinda has asked, okay, here you go. How do you start the change in thinking?
Belinda is an old friend of mine, so I was expecting nothing less than a question like this. So how do you do it, or where do you start?
How do you start? I think why not answer both? How and where?
Yeah. Look, as I elaborated earlier, everybody can start himself any given time. And you might not have, depending on what level and functions you're coming from, is it can be from the bottom. It can be from the bottom, and you will start to see how you affect the surrounding people that you are directly connected with in the work. So you already can start from bottom. You can literally start from any time. It is now commonly we believe we must change the head of the organization. It starts from top down. It's actually not. That's what we believe since 100 years. It's actually not, because if you look into this energy concept of how people are connected energetically, and that is in the meantime also proven science. It's no more longer a hocus pocus. Is how the energy then starts flowing from every level around, and you will become affected in either way. In either way. So I do not believe at all that it has to start from top down, although the whole world will tell you that is the only way forward. If they don't change, the system will eliminate everybody that's affected by this positive energy, and anywhere it started in the level of the organization. They will either leave or the system will eliminate them. I don't believe that. And I see it all the time. I see it all the time. So anybody, Colinda, anybody can start with, and the more people that buy into this concept, and I could tell you actually practical tips how, but this will go too far this time, and where you also have quick response from the field in the organization, that it works and how it works, because you will make the difference. You will make the difference.
Maybe that.
Anybody, any level. Yeah.
But Hans, isn't that tough? Like bottom up, and then Kalinda added, yeah, when the organization is built in a territorial hierarchy. Isn't it tough to go bottom up? By definition, if you're facing all those egos, all those
No,
factors.
but don't think too abstract. I'm not saying you start at the bottom and then you come to the next level and the next level, next level. I didn't say that.
Yeah.
I said everybody. If you find these individuals and you have these people in every organization, they are on different levels. If you activate those guys, there is no other way that you affect everybody around you, and it will contribute to this whole concept until the people that are not willing to buy in will leave. The system will leave them.
Okay, got you.
So it's on
Got you.
multiple levels at the same time. We just need to find these guys to activate them.
Yeah, absolutely got you on that. Martin had a follow-up question. 3 to 5 years timeline. He does agree. What are some of the practical activities that need to happen during this time?
In that cultural change?
Yes.
Well, in simple terms, as you can see it here on these countercurrent principles, once the adjustments are made, as you can see, there's also adjustments during the project because you learn, you self-define yourself in this whole drive. But the most important thing is the empowerment of people and keep the momentum going, because that's what we're lacking today. People are not empowered on all functions and levels because it's all controlled through management levels. But now here comes empowerment and that momentum, because if you get this thing rolling, you're creating expectations. As I said earlier, you create expectations, and expectations may not be disappointed. So what is hugely important is to drive that thing continuously until it reaches a level of a habit. And you hear this oftentimes in marketing concepts: do this 10, 15, 17 days consecutively because it will become a habit. And that's actually nothing else than to keep the momentum going. We start so many projects, guys, and then it just falls flat, and then we start a new project. And that falls then flat, and then we start a new project. That is brother and sister, guys. You need discipline, because discipline will reinforce your motivation that you generate through that drive, and that momentum was built. But not every human being, you don't have the same motivation every day. And when the motivation goes down, the discipline must kick in to maintain that and push it through until you reach the level of that cultural change. It's just maintaining it over time. Don't give up too early. This is why most of the projects fall flat. We're giving up too early. Momentum created, then we are all enthusiastic, and then somebody, no, that's not the right way, and then everybody goes down, and then we start the next project. That's the reality. And the reality is that we need to keep this momentum. But once you got this light ignited anyway, and you start believing in, and you have your first success factor, it becomes easier and easier to maintain.
Absolutely. Makes sense. And agreed from me. I just wanted to share something from hi, ht+a in Istanbul, our lovely colleague.
My next friend.
She wanted to share one memory, one quote. One of her managers told her in early days of her working life, be bold and be brave. We need to act, speak up, and challenge. It works. And 100%. I absolutely agree.
And 100%. And this is where I said people are not empowered on all functions and levels. We just followers. And that's only serves the ego of a small elite group of people, not the company.
Yeah.
Thanks for the input, Hajar.
I've got a big question here that perhaps does actually need to be a topic soon, Hansel. Perhaps you do have some ideas and answers. Benson has asked how we can leverage AI in process improvement and ownership.
Very strongly, very strongly, and it started already earlier. I mean, AI is just, as you know, Taryn, we're dealing with this a lot in our operation as well.
Yeah.
And there's still this common knowledge that it creates fear. It creates fear amongst humans when we touch too much digital and technology and the likes of. No, it's definitely a powerful tool that will support. Because remember, we are in Gen Z now. They're running into management now. For them, digital is not new like for us baby boomers or the millennials. They just grew up with that. All right. And Gen Alpha, they make the whole revolution. There's the full implementation of that. So that is nothing new. That is the useful tools they use to generate. And the new generations will also, they want to communicate, they want to exchange, they want to, because you will be in this new organizations, you will be confronted with an overwhelming amount of cross-departmental activities, which we only have in papers. But due to the silos, it'll be disconnected. It's just the paperwork. So AI is, I fully agree, is a powerful tool that we can, and yeah, we could talk for this for a day.
Yeah.
But there's so many useful applications where we can for now, and how the youngsters will use in the future in any case. And even in the onboarding, as said, with neuroscience, there's so much technologies in onboarding and checking and all that. The technology is already here. It's just the governments are a little bit slow to get it over the finish line. But yeah, super strong tool, will be used, will be definitely part of it.
Well, I mean, I can actually comment also directly on the AI side. As you know, I'm using it quite a lot, as well as our dear colleague Ang, our training management lead, and by the way, Ang and I aren't of the younger generations. We're the exception to the norm, and we use AI a lot, but not blindly. So I think that's the first one. We would never purport to use AI blindly, but from a process improvement point of view, what it has allowed is actually a freeing up of time as well, to give us that ability to think and own the process and improve things. So it's less busy work, and that's been really, really beneficial to us. Is less busy work to work on those actual improvements and use our human brains, because I agree with you, we don't need to be scared of AI. It's beneficial. We need to use AI together with that human brain, and it's giving us that capacity which we wouldn't have before. Ang, I kind of spoke for you there. I don't know if you would want to add one, but I guess you might feel the same as me, wanting to speak up, that it has been beneficial for us. And we are trying to roll it out, and we are actively rolling it out more throughout the organization, whether it is AI or automation. They sometimes get used interchangeably, technologically. But anyway, I could also waffle on forever about that one. Hans, we don't have any more questions lined up. I know I asked you at the beginning. I didn't know if you had any final topics you wanted to add. We've just gone over time, typically.
No, fine. Yeah.
Benson, what are some of the AI tools you are using now? In particular, you can see at the start of this, I'm using Read AI for our meetings. I'm also busy testing out Microsoft's AI. Ang in particular lives on ChatGPT. I think there's a ton. There's a ton. Benson, I'm happy to have a chat with you.
Yeah, take this chat offline to not keep everybody.
You'll see my my email. I'll be sending out this recording to everybody, and let's have a chat. Oh yeah. Cool. Thank you, everybody. That is it for today. Have a good one. Cheers.
Bye-bye.
Bye.